Hello, May class, and welcome to your next science lesson. So in the previous lesson, you were looking at the microscopic views of the insect, and we were looking on the website with Levon Biss. So we're going to carry on looking at our living organisms and looking a little bit closer into them. So today's LO is, can I understand how tiny details help scientists to better classify living things? So we're looking at the idea of the microscopic, even down to the microscopic detail of things, helping us to decide whether something should be classified here or whether something should be classified here. So let's carry on and have a look. So take some time in today's lesson to revisit the microsculpture website that we looked at the previous week to remind yourself about Levon Biss's work with living things. So I know that my class particularly have really loved this, and that you've really enjoyed looking at the insects and looking at everything online, and a lot of you have spent quite a bit of time looking at the different insects. You even created your own version of the insect you like the most on here, and it's been really great to see how much you've enjoyed it. So well done. So it's all in the detail. When something very small is shown in a very large image, you can see so much detail, so much of the tiny details and features that you would not usually get to see. Remember when we looked at the microsculptures and we zoomed right in, you could even see the detail around the insect's eyes. You could see the detail on the wings, if they had wings. You could see the little hairs off the legs. You could see all those tiny details once you zoomed straight in. To classify living things, scientists must look further than the obvious details to identify which species they are looking at. So sometimes we can look at something, and I'm going to use the example of an ostrich and an eagle. So they both are birds, they both have two legs, they both have feathers. But ostriches don't fly, eagles do. They have different diets. So it's often really important if we zoom closer in, even if we looked at something like a penguin and an eagle. If we zoomed both in, although they're both birds, are they covered in the same thing? Are their bodies built for the same climates, for the same habitats? So obviously we need to look a little bit deeper than just on the outside. So like I said, to classify living things, scientists must look further than the obvious details to identify which species they are looking at, or if indeed it is a never before seen species. And something, remember we spoke earlier on about the fact that there are still species of animals and of plants and of living things being discovered. You researched a little bit about that to see what was the latest discovery made, what's the most recent one. So there are still things being discovered, which means that these need to be classified by scientists, and they use the details and the features of the living thing that has been discovered to help them to organize them into their different groups or to classify them better. So I'd like you to pause the video again and watch the clip on the Levon Biss website. Go through the film again and the process and the detail and everything that he talks about, and then come back and join us. So the purpose of looking at these tiny details when we're looking at our living things is what we're going to look at next. With this sort of technology, so the sort of technology that Levon Biss uses, when this sort of technology is available, so much more can be discovered about tiny species of living things. Levon Biss takes lots of close-up photos, and then you remember, I think it was about 8,000 photos, and then he pieces them all back together to create the final picture that you see on the screen. Have a look at the drawing that you made of your living thing from the previous lesson. How fascinating is it to see tiny details come to life in your drawing? So hopefully the drawing you've made has included small details, including maybe some of the hairs on the legs, maybe some of the detail on wings if you've drawn wings, maybe the colors used on the beetle that you've drawn. So have a look at those. In this way, you are able to better understand the features of living things once we have zoomed in close to them. And this is also not just on things like insects or birds. It can also be on flowers and plants because they're also living things. And when you zoom up close to them, you'll see differences. So even with this plant on our right here, if you zoom up close and you look at the little detail in the petals and you look at the detail in the pollen that's right in the middle, that will help you better classify this plant. So let's see how well you know your living things. Can you give yourself the challenge of identifying as many living things as you can from the next slide in 1 minute? So I'm going to do it with you. I've got my paper and my pen, and I've got my timer. I'm going to give us 1 minute to write down as many living things as we can from the next slide. So let me set my timer, and then we can do it together. So we're going to do 1 minute. 1 minute, and we're going to write down as many living things as we can see in the picture. Are you ready? Okay, and go. Mm. 10 more seconds. And stop. There we go. Right, so I have got a total of, let me count mine up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I have got 16 living things on the screen. So, how many did you get? Did you beat me? Did you include other things that were in the picture? So, not just the puppy, but the grass in the picture as well. So, give it a think, have a look. Right, so well done. I'll read some of them to you. I've got the plant that we've got. If we start in the top left-hand corner, then going across, I've got a plant, then I've got grass, then I've got puppy, I've got a fish, I've got the coral, or the plants that are underneath, that's not coral, but the underwater plants. I've got seaweed, I've got a whale, I've got the grass that the little moth is on. So I've got the moth, I've got the leaf, I've got the ladybird, the tree, the kangaroo, the dragonfly, I've got the butterfly, and I've got the rose that it's on. Were you able to find anything else in this picture that's living that I've maybe missed? Have a look. So, how did you do? Were you able to find as many as I did? Okay. Thought process behind classifying living things. You need to remember the following. Ask yourself yes or no questions. This is the best way to identify features that make living things unique and special and easy to classify or group or sort or categorize. Yes, no questions will eliminate, which means take away the wrong living things and lead you to the correct living things. So, your 3 tasks today are as follows. Number 1, create a branching database that will identify all living things on the slide with the all living things pictures. So you need to create, and I'll go back, a database that includes, these would be all your answers. So things like a plant, a puppy, a fish, a human, the whale, the moth, the ladybird, all of those. Can you create a branching database that these are the answers that you get to with your yes, no questions? Task 2 is include the following vocabulary in your branching database. So if you haven't included it, go back and correct it. And I want you to try and use the words habitat, invertebrate, and mammal. If you are unsure what those 3 words mean, write them down now and have a look in your dictionary or online if you need to check what the word habitat, invertebrate, or mammal means. We have already spoken about all of these, but in case we've forgotten. Task 3. With someone in your game, in your family, or someone that's at home with you, play a game of Guess Who. Now, we've all played this game of Guess Who, hopefully. It's a board that you would have with these little characters flipped up, and then you get one character that you choose, and your partner has another character that you can't see, and then you have to try and guess which character they have by putting down, you have the same pictures on either side, by asking yes, no questions, and then putting them down. So you could say, does your character have more than 2 legs? And if the answer is no, I would put down everything that doesn't have 2 legs, and I would only leave up the things that do have 2 legs. So you would try and narrow down what character they've got. So with someone in your family, play a game of Guess Who. One of you asks the other yes, no questions until the other person either gives up or correctly guesses the living thing that you have chosen. So person A says, does the living thing live underwater? And person B would say yes or no. And this should help you narrow down your choices of what living things they've got. So that should be something really fun for you to play, and you can set it up however you would like. Don't forget to share your work with us on Tapestry. I'd really love to see what you have been doing, and I would love to see your branching databases and how you play your Guess Who game for classifying your living things. Make sure that your work is uploaded onto Tapestry by 4 o'clock this afternoon, please.